Mexico elects its first female president. Australian military recruits non-citizens to boost troop numbers. Georgia foreign influence bill signed into law. Nigeria union workers shut down national grid in protest. Heat kills more than 50 people in India in 3 days. 80 years since D-Day kickoff in Normandy.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News this Wednesday, June 5th, and here are your top stories. The chants broke out just before midnight as Claudia Sheinbaum took the stage at her victory party in Mexico City. A woman will become president for the first time in the 200-year history of Mexico's republic. Sheinbaum defeated 2 others overnight to capture the presidency. Though votes are still being tallied, the final margin is expected to be roughly 30 points. It is a landslide victory for Sheinbaum and her party, Morena, outpacing most polling that had her favored by about 20 points. This is a monumental moment for a country whose society, and therefore its politics, has long been patriarchal. Women were not even granted the right to vote until the 1950s.
Sheinbaum, the Jewish former mayor of Mexico City with a PhD in engineering, won't have long to bask in her win. Mexico's challenges are myriad, chief among them public security or the lack thereof. According to government statistics, 6 of 10 voters in this election cited safety as their top concern. According to Mexican consulting firm Integralia, more people have been murdered during the 6-year term of the current administration than any other, including more than 230 people in election-related violence this election cycle. Organized crime's vice grip on the country has only increased, with human smuggling and drug trafficking at or above record levels. Sheinbaum will take office on October 1st, less than 4 months before the next U.S. president is sworn in.
The Australian government said Tuesday that the country's military will begin recruiting some non-citizens to boost troop numbers. Only people from other members of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing partnership who hold Australian permanent residency will be eligible. Defense Minister Richard Marles said the move is part of a push to build a military that can resist foreign coercion through bloc trade routes in the future. Marles, also Deputy Prime Minister, said the change was a major step toward addressing a 4,400-person shortfall in the Australian Defence Force, whose target strength is 63,600 full-time personnel.
The government intends to increase that number to 80,000 by 2040. Relatively low unemployment is one of the factors working against the Australian military attracting and retaining personnel. Marles said Australia is particularly reliant on open sea and air routes as an island nation that trades with the world and therefore is susceptible to coercion from foreign militaries. New Zealanders who have lived in Australia for at least a year will be eligible to join the military from July, and permanent residents from the United States, Britain and Canada will be eligible from January 2025. Officials reported in February that the New Zealand Defence Force is short of 1,300 uniformed personnel, after losing 30% of its military personnel between 2021 and last year.
The Speaker of Georgia's parliament said he signed into law Monday a decisive measure that has drawn weeks of protests by critics who say it will curb media freedom and jeopardize the country's chances of joining the European Union. The government argues the law is needed to stem what it deems to be harmful foreign actors trying to destabilize the South Caucasus nation of 3.7 million. Many journalists and activists say its true goal is to stigmatize them and restrict debate ahead of a parliamentary election scheduled for October.
Speaker Shalva Papuashvili acted after the legislature, controlled by the ruling Georgian Dream Party, overrode a veto of the bill by President Salome Zourabichvili. Approved by lawmakers last month, the measure requires media, non-governmental organizations and other nonprofit groups to register as pursuing the interests of a foreign power if they receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad. Opponents have denounced it as the Russian law because it resembles measures pushed through by the Kremlin to crack down on independent news media, nonprofits and activists. They say the measure may have been driven by Moscow to thwart Georgia's chances of further integration with the West. Prime Minister Irakli Kobahidze dismissed the criticism Monday as unnecessary emotions that had only an artificial basis.
According to the transmission company of Nigeria, a nationwide strike in Nigeria brought air travel to a standstill and plunged the country into darkness on Monday as union workers stormed the national grid and shut down the nation's power supply. Tens of millions are without power and flights have been disrupted as the Nigerian Labor Congress and the Trade Union Congress initiated an indefinite strike. The company said operators from TCN were beaten and injured while they were forcibly removed from control rooms.
Cane-swinging union workers were also seen in photos circulating on social media Monday ordering personnel of the country's tax agency out of their offices. This strike comes after failed negotiations with the government to raise the federal minimum wage. The unions are also protesting a recent hike in electricity tariffs. The union's demands include raising the minimum wage from 30,000 naira to 494,000 naira. Presidential aide Bayo Onanuga dismissed these demands as unreasonable in a post on the social media platform X. The government had proposed a 100% increase to 60,000 naira, which the unions rejected, seeking a 1,547% increase instead. Despite being Africa's fourth largest economy, Nigeria's minimum wage is not among the continent's top 10. Lagging far behind countries like Seychelles, where workers receive a minimum wage of $465.40 monthly.
More than 50 people have died in India over the past 3 days as a brutal heat spell continues to grip parts of the country. Around 33 people died in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh over the weekend due to the heat. These included people involved in the general election, including polling officials, security guards, and sanitation staff. Saturday was the last phase of voting. Every 5 years, India holds its general election in the summer months of April and May. But this year, the temperatures have been record-breaking, with the country experiencing frequent, more intense, and longer heat waves.
The Federal Health Ministry says that there have been at least 56 confirmed heat stroke deaths from the 1st of March to the 30th of May. About 24,849 heatstroke cases were reported during the period. However, state-wise figures suggest the actual number could be much higher. The state's Special Relief Commissioner said in a statement, in Odisha, district authorities reported 99 suspected heat stroke deaths in the past 72 hours. Of these, 20 cases have been confirmed. India's National Center for Disease Control calls heat strokes a life-threatening condition with a mortality rate of 40 to 64%. The heat in northern and central India and parts of the west has been unrelenting for the past 2 weeks, with maximum temperatures hovering around 45 to 46 C for days at a stretch and even climbing up to 50 C in some areas.
Parachutists jumping from World War II era planes hurled themselves Sunday into now peaceful Normandy skies where war once raged, heralding a week of ceremonies for the fast disappearing generation of Allied troops who fought from D-Day beaches 80 years ago to Adolf Hitler's fall, helping free Europe of his tyranny. All along the Normandy coastline, where then young soldiers from across the United States, Britain, Canada, and other Allied nations waded ashore through hells of fire on 5 beaches on June 6, 1944. French officials, grateful Normandy survivors, and other admirals are saying merci, but also goodbye.
The ever-dwindling number of veterans in their late 90s and older who are coming back to remember fallen friends and their history-changing exploits are the last. Watching the southern England coastline recede Sunday through the windows of one of 3 C-47 transport aircraft that flew him and other jumpers across the English Channel to their Normandy drop zone was like time traveling back to D-Day for 63-year-old Neil Hamsler, a former British Army paratrooper. Part of the purpose of fireworks shows, parachute jumps, solemn commemorations and ceremonies that world leaders will attend this week is to pass the baton of remembrance to the current generations now seeing war again in Europe, in Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British royals are among the VIPs that France is expecting for D-Day events.
The answer for yesterday is B, ravaged. His health was gradually ravaged by excessive drinking. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of 80 years since D-Day kickoff in Normandy. Number 1, hurl. 猛扔,猛投,猛摔. He hurled a brick through the window. Number 2, solemn. 宗教礼仪或正式场合庄严的,隆重的. The president's burial was a solemn occasion. Number 3, commemoration. 纪念,纪念仪式. We caused a medal to be struck in commemoration of this discovery. Next, we have a multiple-choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune in to Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I will see you next time.